Hi, this is Krista Walsh.
Hey, this is Daniel Arthur Smith.
Hey, this is Terry R. Hill.
Hey, it's Josh Hayes, and you're listening to
30-minute author interviews
with my friend Preston Lay.
Woohoo! Hey guys, before we jump into this week's episode, I want to tell you about two different sponsors that we have. First up is Cereal Box. Cereal Box delivers exciting episodes of ongoing stories straight to your device every Wednesday. They bring everything that's awesome about TV to what's already cool about books with addicting serials you can take with you on the go. All of their episodes are available in text and audio, and their sleek app makes reading easier than ever. They have a range of titles from gritty urban thrillers to sexy sword-fighting fantasies and everything in between. Season 2 of The Witch Who Came In From the Cold just started up. The Witch Who Came In From the Cold. All the subterfuge of the Americans with a dark dose of magic. Head on over to cerealbox.com where you can read and listen to it now. And of course, the first episode of Season 1 is free, so you can check it out there. Cerealbox.com, SERIALBOX.com. Our second sponsor this week is the Galactic Satori Chronicles, written by Nick Breaker and Paul E. Hicks. A thirst for revenge sends one man on a deadly journey through the galaxy in this adrenaline-pumping new series. Asher is a young man whose world is turned upside down when he discovers that his fiance's death has been directly caused by an imminent alien invasion. In a desire to better understand humans in order to destroy them, these aliens are projecting their consciousness into unsuspecting men and women, and in the process are learning exactly how to use humanity's own selfishness and greed as weapons against them. Fueled by emotions that the aliens will never understand, Asher bands together with a group of friends. These four MIT co-eds are more than meets the eye and go to battle with those who are intent on destroying our planet. Asher takes the fight from Earth to an alien spaceship and then to the very planet of the enemy trying to destroy them. Galactic Satori Chronicles can be found on Amazon, where from March 1st to March 5th you can get Book 1 Earth for free, and Book 2 Kron is only 99 cents. If you'd like to learn more about either one of our sponsors, head on over to Leigendarium.com and check out the show notes. We'll have links to both of our sponsors so you can check them out. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews. Our guest today is Terry Maggert. Thank you for taking time and joining us for 30-Minute Author Interviews.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here, and let's hope for 30 minutes that my basset hound stays quiet. So
it'll be all right if they don't.
Yeah, it's touch and go.
That's right. We start out each podcast episode here with a segment called Two Truths and a Lie. So if you could give me two truths and a lie about yourself, I'm going to try to guess what the lie is, but I have not been very successful with this yet. I think I'm below 50-50. So do you have two truths and a lie for us?
I do.
Okay.
I do. First of all, I'll start out with something physical. That is, I am an expert pogo sticker.
Okay. Okay.
I can play an entire basketball game, like shoot a game of horse in the driveway, on my pogo stick with no hands.
Awesome.
I have had this ability since I was, I think, maybe 15. My dad got me the sort of a, I don't know if you'd call it a competition pogo stick.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was, with this virtually a truck spring in the middle of it. Anyway, okay, so that's item number one. Item number two, well, everything happened for me later in life. I became a dad at 40. I got married later in life, went back to school, and I was ordained as a minister later in life after I picked my undergrad as religion, which is absolutely something I would not have envisioned in my entire life doing. Okay. And of course, then I went on and got my master's in history. And I think that there's a lot of crossover between religion and history. I think they just go hand in hand. So I'm a minister. The third thing is I cut off my index finger, let's see, this is 2017. This would have been in 2006 or 7. I called it my Frankenfinger for a year and a half because I got weird phantom pains in the middle of, it was like 3 inches away in space.
Okay.
Anyway, they sewed it back on, but so I have a Frankenfinger. So those are my 3 facts.
Oh, man. I'm probably not going to get this right again. So I believe I remember from stuff, because I follow you online. I believe I read somewhere that you did become a father later in life. So, and I know that you teach history, and we have a fan question about that later.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to say that one's true. So it's down to the finger or the pogo stick, and they're both awesome, and both sound like. I mean, it sucks that you lost your finger if it's true, but
I know I've got you right where I want you. Ha! You're a liar.
That's right. The pogo stick would be kind of cool if you could play a whole, because I stink at a pogo stick. Oh man. For some reason, I'm hoping the pogo stick's true. I'm going to say, dang it, or it could be the finger. I'm going to say the lie is the finger.
Actually, I'm not a minister. So I'm sure that any holy book would burst into flames if I ever were to lay my hand on it and declare that I were going to conduct marriages. So, no, I actually did cut my finger off and have it sewn back on. And I actually am an expert pogo sticker, which is not what you would think of someone who's over 6 feet tall and 240 pounds. But, yeah.
Wow. So. Man.
Now, you should take this with a grain of salt, sir, because I get paid to lie.
That's true.
So, I mean, I sit down and I make up lies that are 77,000 words long. So
that's true.
I don't want you to feel bad about it.
So is there an interesting story with how you ended up cutting your finger off?
Oh, no. Well, I'll tell you one myth that we can do away with is you know how they say the sharper your knife is, the less it hurts? That's a lie.
Okay.
So let's just do away with that.
Okay.
Right out of the gate. So,
wow.
No, I don't have it wasn't a biker gang. It wasn't a Architeuthis giant squid and me standing mano a mano on the bow of a ship or anything like that. No, it was a butcher knife and a pork roast. So.
Okay. That works. Food seems to be a recurring theme with you.
Have you met me? I mean, take a look at my. My face looks like a trucker on this camera. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, for those of my listeners that might not know who you are, can you kind of give my listeners a bio on who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm Terry. Let's see. As of probably 5:30 this morning, I finished my 10th novel.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I write well in the morning. I write well early in the morning and late at night.
Okay.
I'm a native South Floridian. I'm a beach rat that kind of grew up and went up to upstate New York to the foothills of the Adirondacks for a few years. That's where my mom is from. And now I live near Nashville, Tennessee. I love it here. I love the Southeast. Although really, I'm sure I would be happy anywhere.
Right.
That's just my nature. I am an old school 1970s geek. Like the kind of geek who read every science fiction anthology that they could get their hands on all through the 70s. And yeah, I love 70s horror. I love epic fantasy. I even read new weird. So I'm like many writers, I would say I'm a compulsive reader. I owned a pub before. That's what I did for a living. Went back to school later in life, became a dad at 40. And here we are. And I really got serious, didn't get serious until I'm responsible for a lot of terrible poetry and really horrible short stories that I wrote when I was in my angst-ridden years. And,
right.
So now I take it seriously and I try to get better with every single page.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one of the fan questions that we got submitted, and I'm sorry if I say their name wrong. I think her name is Charita Breaker.
Sharita.
Sharita.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Sharita. Sharita wants to know, as a history professor, do you ever think about writing more historical fiction?
Oh, of course. It's look, I'm a white male over the age of 45. Therefore, I want to be Hemingway, right? But without the suicide. Okay, so the idea is historical fiction dovetails with everything I want that craving to be taken seriously as an author, because it requires rigor. It requires you have to be if you're going to write about the 1500s in northern France, you better understand the facts. And it requires discipline. I would love to. I have a stack of research that I can see. One of my characters kind of got away from me a little bit and became more fascinating than I anticipated. And I'm going to write her story in the late 1800s in Paris.
Okay.
Which is one of the most fascinating times of the planet in my mind. And it's such a rich, lush environment. I don't think you can go wrong. So that's on a burner. I don't know if it's a back burner, but it's definitely on the heat.
So what is it about France in that time period that you just love?
Oddly enough, I felt okay. So the character is a 2,300-year-old succubus who spent time off and on, at the mercy of her body, and it brings up a lot of questions about agency and sexuality and gender roles and a lot of the things that I teach in history. And so I am doing research to teach a section about the French Republic, and I read about these women called Les Grandes Horizontales. And the name alone, Les Grandes Horizontales, I thought, all right, and they were courtesans. They were the highest paid courtesans, and I've mentioned this in every podcast I've been involved in. They earned more money than some royalty.
Really?
Oh yeah, Cora Pearl was, if I'm not mistaken, was earning 60,000 francs a month, which is a breathtaking amount of money for 1895 or whenever. And these women traded in secrets as well as money and sex, and they're just endlessly fascinating. A lot of them are wholly created beings. In other words, they were poor girls from Britain or Brittany or the coast of Italy or wherever. And they created this image and filled it out and became desirable partially because of the image they created. They're fascinating. And they also usually died very sadly. So it's this bittersweet kind of epic that spans one woman's life at a time when the cultural center of the world was in some sense Paris.
Okay. One of my top 5 books of all time. It doesn't necessarily take place in Paris, but it takes place around almost the same time period. It takes place around 1900. It's The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern.
Okay, yeah.
Have you ever read that book?
I haven't. Do you know what? It was recommended to me by another author who has written about a circus.
Okay.
And I actually read one of my books, and I had written about a circus inhabited by evil French Canadian vampire clowns, as if there could be anything more evil. And and that was recommended to me, and I actually may have even downloaded it because the entire premise was so gripping. So it's on my list. It's
a great book. Okay. I love it.
Okay.
So if you read it, you'll have to let me know. But
yeah. Well, now that you've said it, I have to.
Right. The way that she describes everything in that book. I mean, the atmosphere, the carnival food, the carnival smells, just everything. I mean, you just get so wrapped up in that time period. It's a fun story.
Okay.
You'll probably like it.
Oh, I know. I know I will. Yeah.
So for part of this, for this podcast episode, you're actually going to be giving our listeners a chance to win a signed copy of your book, Banshee.
Yes.
Can you kind of give people the non-spoiler book blurb on what Banshee is about?
Okay. Well, preface this by saying that I am, I was born in the late 60s and came of age reading Anne McCaffrey. Okay. Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern influenced me more than anything else, period. I try to honor her with Easter eggs wherever I can. I wanted the dragons to be good guys, and I wanted to write a post-apocalyptic novel. So in essence, there's been a cataclysm. Dragons emerged, fully sentient, on our side, and ready to go to battle. And the tagline is "Cities fall, dragons rise, war begins." And effectively, it's the war between hell and the world. And it's going to be waged between humans, dragons versus evil. And I wanted it to be gritty and have an element of fear to it.
Do you know where you were when the idea for that book hit and what it was that inspired it?
Yeah.
Was it food?
No. Well, everything else in my life is, trigger warning. It's food. So, no. You know what? A friend of mine worked at the Mall of the Americas. Okay. And I'd wanted to write something about dragons for some time. And she mentioned the Mall of the Americas is the world's largest, like the largest mall in North America. And she mentioned something about how big the parking lot was. And I sat down and wrote this scene about a guy who's, essentially detoxing. He's a drug addict who's detoxing, and he sees a dragon emerge from the snow. Because my friends and I, when we were kids, we always used to say, what would happen if we were fishing here and all of a sudden we saw a T-Rex? I mean, what if you just see something that's such a complete anomaly? And so I said, what if this dragon shows up and says, point me south. Why do you want to go south? Because that's where the war is going to begin. And to me, everything, here we are 98,000 words later. it just flowed. There was never a hiccup in the narrative. Based on that one little blurb.
Oh wow, that's pretty awesome.
It was easy to. It was one of the easiest things I've ever written because you write your passion, and of course I'm a passionate nerd. So
that's funny. Do you consider most of your books YA or new adult, or
I do?
How do you get categorized?
I do. The Fearless series is dark urban fantasy, and there's some sexual content and violence. I'm one of those people who I am unapologetically American, and yet I understand our dual national ignorance of, or rather, we conflate sex and violence. Mm-hmm. And we have this strange relationship where violence can be considered okay, but a naked woman is not. And I wanted, an adult-themed, it's not erotica, but an adult-themed series. And the Fearless series is unapologetically aimed at 18 and over. Okay. But my heroes everywhere else are younger. And one of the reasons why I say they're younger is because young people don't take things personally. You can heap a lot more stress and tension on a younger person than you could on, say, me. Mm-hmm. Here I am almost 50. Do I tolerate what I would have at 20? No. And so consequently, I ended up writing YA, even though I really didn't think it was ever in the cards for me.
Okay. I'm going to ask you something. I don't know if I've ever asked any other young adult author. There seem to be, like, if you go to, the big box stores and look at the young adult section, it seems like once Twilight hit, that was kind of the thing. Then the Hunger Games got popular, and then that was kind of the thing with young adult. And it kind of seems like a lot of this young adult centers around what's, I guess, the popular thing for young adults. So what sets your books apart from all of the other YA books that are trying to get attention?
Well, I don't think I would never criticize another author because I'm not in their shoes. I can only speak to my own. My characters, the young people, they experience young people problems. I don't want to write a 50-year-old who is 17. First of all, I couldn't do it. I can't juxtapose the two worlds. But, Livy Foster is the heroine of Heartborn, and she's 17, and she has thoughts that a 17-year-old has. She's lived with a disability her entire life, and she's 17. Therefore, she shouldn't be an overly savvy person. She should wonder about her moral decisions. She should wonder about, am I going to be here tomorrow? And have very natural fears like a 17-year-old would have. And I did the same thing. I have Savin Rourke, who is in Banshee, and she's 17. And she's forced into adulthood, of course, by an apocalypse. So she's going to react differently, but I still want her to feel youthful. When you read it, you say, yeah, that's something a 17-year-old would say or experience because they don't have 40 years under their belt. That's where I tried to stay true.
Which, since you're a history teacher, what age group do you teach, or what grade do you
I teach college.
Do you teach college? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a college. Yeah, I teach college.
Okay.
Not out of any altruistic sense, but because I don't know that I could handle a room full of 9-year-olds. So,
Do you ask any of your younger students, what would you do if you were stuck in this situation?
No, but you know what I do? Full disclosure, I watch them.
Do you? Okay.
I'm like a sponge for, I think that most writers have that function within them where you're a born observer. Mm-hmm. And, and I have to, you and I were speaking about adult things and buying a house, things like this. These, 18 is an adult, but it's also a kid, and I have to dial down my intensity in terms of my expectations from them. Simply by watching them, I realize, man, these kids are just out of school, and they have 18-year-old problems. So it's a rich environment in the sense that I can get authentic feelings and dialogue from people based on watching them live their lives.
Okay. And Heartborn, which you mentioned a minute ago, is kind of, you told me it was one of your more popular books that you've written.
Yeah.
I guess before we talk about it, can you give everybody the non-spoiler book on that story?
Okay, yeah. So the tagline is her guardian angel was pushed, and there's Livy Foster is a 17-year-old girl that's in need of a heart, and everything in her life has rotated around being disabled, being ill. And I created two narratives. One is Livy is going about her life when she meets a young man, and she doesn't realize it, but she is the key to an ongoing war in a place that is neither here nor there. Angels are, I treat angels like mythical beings who simply are another form of life. And Livy is going to be put into a position where she is the key to the war for heaven. I love her as a character. By page 3, I was in love with her. Just loved everything about her.
Mm-hmm. So the cover for that book is gorgeous. Who did you get to do that cover?
Okay, so so there's nothing like panic to create a good art.
Right.
I have to give credit where credit is due. One of my best book friends and a good friend of mine and an advisor to me is the writer Stacy Hart.
Okay.
She's just excellent. I am so envious of how sparkling her dialogue is, and I tell her every time we talk. But Stacy did that cover for me. She also did the Halfway Dead cover. Stacy spent 10 years as a graphic artist, and we are, as people, I think we share some DNA because she and I seem to be on the same page in terms of visual art. And I had a cover done, and it just didn't work out. The model was wonderful. Everything was wonderful, but taken in aggregate, the parts didn't work. And Stacy did that cover in 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Yep, 20 minutes. I think it was 20 minutes.
Wow. I mean, that's a cover that if I saw that on the shelf at, one of the big box stores, I would stop and pick up that book to see what it was about. It's such a killer cover. I made some bad choices in my life. I wore, bell bottoms and had fluffy hair. And I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life. One of the worst decisions I made was I was an art major my first year of college. And I decided, I loved oil painting and everything else. But so I have some vestigial art skills, and I drew a rough draft of that cover and sent it to Stacy. So that's what, in fact, I'll email it to you just because I want you to see how good she is. Because I did a basic line drawing, right,
and she turned it into that. And that to me is where the good becomes great. it also goes to this truism, surround yourself with truly excellent people and look what ends up happening. A cover to me is arresting.
Yeah. That's right, because I actually went to school too for graphic design.
Okay.
And then I took a class, and the guy said, you will be graded on how you can draw by hand, not by what you can do on a computer. Ew. And my stick figures don't even look good. So I went to the counselor at the school and said, I don't think graphic design is for me because of this class. So then I just took a bunch of basic classes that you kind of need for every degree and took an accounting class. I've always been great at math. I enjoyed the accounting class, so I just kept going.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, man. We talked about this a little bit. You never know where you're going to end. I never thought I'd be a history professor. I was, and I'm using air quotes, asked to leave 2 different schools because of my grades. Right. And, here I am shaping young minds. So, funny. I mean, there's your bridges aren't totally burned. It's just that maybe you're not on the right bridge.
That's right. So what was the inspiration for Heartborn? Where did that story come from?
It was a dream.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I dreamed the entire. When I have a dream like that about books, that's where most of them have come from. To be honest, I think I eat a spicy diet and don't sleep a lot, so that's where it came from. I saw the entire narrative in the arc, got up and started writing, knew what I wanted, who I wanted, and how I wanted it to unfold in terms of the 2 worlds unfolding together. What's real, what isn't. How to, Livy's entire life is effectively 4-dimensional. And it all came to me in one night, and I was writing at 5:30 the next morning.
Oh, wow. Now, is Heartborn going to be part of a series, or is that a standalone one and done?
No, it started off as a standalone, and I finished the sequel this morning.
Okay.
And actually went right on and started writing the 3rd book because the cylinders were firing, and I think I have a 3-book arc that says everything I want to about that world.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
People definitely need to check that book out on the cover. I know I have it on my in my Kindle to be read list.
Okay, cool. You know what? I'm proud of it. I can say when I read it the first time. It's easy to fall in love with your own art at times, and it's also easy to be hypercritical. Mm-hmm. And I went back and visited it again, and I said I'm happy with where Livy went. Okay.
Yeah. So if you had to recommend any of your books that you have, is Heartborn going to be the one that you recommend the most to people?
I think so. That or Halfway Dead.
Okay.
Just because I love the character so much, and I think you can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for Halfway Dead, why don't you kind of give people the little what's that series about?
Oh, sure. Okay, so Carly is a 21-year-old white witch who is a short order cook in a diner in a mountain tourist trap town. And effectively her job, her family for several centuries has protected those lands. Those are her lands. And she is a young witch who is taking her job very seriously. And it gives me a chance to explore small town culture and urban fantasy simultaneously. So it's got elements of the paranormal. There's, creepy crawlies and there's waffles. So I mean, the tagline is "Come for the waffles, stay for the magic," and which is, you can clearly see what kind of element I grew up in. I grew up in a restaurant, so there's no doubt.
Which you are the reason why the Katie started Waffle Wednesdays.
Well,
I hope she keeps that going because I still remember that one to the day. That we talked about waffles for probably half an hour. On there.
Well, it's one of those things that until you I think my tagline on Twitter was just nothing but pie for like 2 years. So pie, waffles, pancakes. If people don't like those, you don't need to be friends with them. That's my kind of been my motto. I said I use it as a litmus test occasionally. I'll say, what's your preference? Pie, waffles? And if they say, no, not my thing, then I'm like, well, it's been nice. Take care.
So speaking of waffles, what's your favorite way to have waffles?
First of all, I like two waffles on top of each other.
Okay.
I like waffle. And secondly, I have a weird thing where I like two sunny side up eggs in the middle of the second waffle.
Okay.
And syrup around the outside, and I eat the outside, and then I have the eggs with the middle.
Okay. My wife might like that one. I might have to tell her that one.
It's like breakfast and lunch all in one.
I like either a chocolate chip waffle.
Oh, yeah.
From like Waffle House. I love theirs. And I found out recently the Huddle House does it too. Because we don't have a Waffle House around us. And the Huddle House, we can throw whatever in your waffles. I was like, chocolate chips? They're like, yep.
You don't have a Waffle House?
No, we don't. The closest one's like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I'm
so sorry.
I am too. I miss it. The All-Star Breakfast is the best.
Oh my goodness. My wife and I have their Christmas CD.
Do you?
We do. I actually have a Waffle House athletic team T-shirt from 2002.
That is hilarious.
And it has eggs chasing each other, and it says "Can't be beat." And it's among my prized possessions.
That is hilarious. My other favorite way that if I could cook it at home, I would, but I don't have a fryer. I love chicken and waffles. That is the best. You got to have. There's this place in Charleston. They put a little bit of cinnamon in their waffle mix. Then, of course, you got to have the syrup on it. Then you put the fried chicken on top of it with honey mustard. Oh, it's the best.
I don't know who, I'm going to quote my wife here. When we were 15 years ago, when we were dating, she said, part of the reason she married me is because of my fried chicken. And she said, I don't know anyone who doesn't like fried chicken, and I don't want to know anyone who doesn't like fried chicken.
That's right.
And I don't know who decided to put it on a waffle, but I would like to personally shake their hand.
Right. Well, back to your books for a minute.
Sure.
I'm sure we could go on for food.
We're
all
about food anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
You said you just finished the writing the sequel to Heartborn. Or heartburn if you eat everything we're talking about.
Right.
When do you think you might end up publishing the sequel to Heartborn?
We're looking at April.
April, okay.
Yeah.
That's not too far away. That's pretty quick, actually.
No, I'm very fortunate to work with good people. Mm-hmm. I have a team, I guess you could say. I've got my cover art and my graphics and my editing, all with tried and true people who are excellent and responsive and make you look good. And so consequently, you can get a book to press fairly quickly once you put the time in. And it's, this is year 4 for me.
Okay.
And so by now I should be an expert, right?
Right.
I mean, and not an expert, but it should be streamlined and smooth. Mm-hmm. So yeah, soon. And then I think this year will be a 3-title year.
Oh, wow.
I feel like I'm going to get 3 titles out.
Okay. You going to try to finish the third Heartborn this year?
No, I've got Halfway Drowned, which is the 4th book in the Halfway Witchy series.
Okay.
Is chugging right along. And then I've got 25,000 words written in the 5th Fearless novel.
Okay.
And its title is The Dead Heart.
Okay. Sounds
so that's
good.
Yeah, it's been a really good 3 months.
Yeah. How much research do you have to do for your different books? I know I read an interview, I think it was for your Heartborn, and you said that one you really didn't do any research. You only had to research one thing, and I forget what it was. So how much research do you have to do for your different series?
Quite a bit. Well, I'll tell you what. Part of it is handled by the fact that I'm a history professor. And, my life is spent, I can't think of anything better than reading books. So I read constantly. So my ongoing job process is also congruent with researching for novels. Somebody famously, I think it was Gene Shepard, who said, get your facts right and then do whatever you want with them. So if you get your base knowledge correct, then you can, change it to make it a fantasy novel or science fiction or things like that. Mm-hmm. But I so many times I've been reading a book and I've read something that is a glaring error where it would have taken 15 seconds to look up what is the muzzle capacity, what's the magazine capacity of a 45, things like that. And, questions like that lend an air of credibility to your books. So, if I have a question, I find out.
Yeah, it's always the small stuff. I had
it is.
I had a author Franklin Horton on here the other week, and he writes post-apocalyptic. It's almost he's real popular in like the prepper world because of the content of his books, and he's always careful to make sure that what he's doing can actually work and can actually happen. He had I think he said a doctor or a medical person comment on some first aid stuff in one of his books, how like spot on it was. So people do notice that stuff. My wife was reading a book put out by James Patterson's publishing company, I guess, that he has now. And she almost quit reading the book 4 chapters in because the author was talking about stuff that wasn't common practice back then, that they were still experimenting with, but the author was writing it as if it was an everyday thing, and it wasn't. She almost quit reading it because of that. So
the out-of-time anomaly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the one book series we haven't really let you mention yet, but you've talked about a couple times, is your Fearless series. So why don't you kind of let people know what that series is about?
That's okay. It started from driving by a roadside cross, and I'm a Floridian, and we didn't necessarily have them in Florida, where somebody was killed on the side of a road. And I wrote an 1,800-word horror story based on the idea that they could be used as bait by a ghoul, and then you have a human helper who goes into town, spreads a rumor saying that it's haunted, see if any teenagers come out, and you've got an 80s slasher flick waiting to happen. And it bloomed from there. I sent it to an anthology, and the editor sent it back and said, this ought to be a book.
Oh, wow.
And so, boom, I'm 400,000 words into the series. So that's how quickly that happened. It's 3 hunters, a man and 2 women that live in they live in South Florida, at the beaches of South Florida, which is where I grew up. And they're confronted with the reality that the world is not as they seem. It's actually full of creepy crawlies. Mm-hmm. And these creepy crawlies are unrepentantly bad. There isn't any sparkly vampire syndrome or anything like that. I wanted there to be a real clear delineation of who is good and who is bad. And then naturally, as soon as I get done deciding that, Delphine, the 2,300-year-old succubus, pops up, and she becomes the moral center of the entire story. As a matter of fact, she converts to Catholicism, 3 books in, because I thought, why not? Because it was just the obvious reason, direction she was going. So,
okay. Who did the cover work for all those books?
Amalia Citilescu. She is my Romanian bestie. She is amazing. She got inside my head. We managed to get past there's a little bit of a language barrier that existed 3-4 years ago. Her English continues to get better and better, of course. But she just intuitively understood the mood that I wanted. And I think she hit a home run. It was amazing.
The cover for Mask of the Swan is just wow.
Yeah. I told her, I sent her a little audio file, a 15-second audio file of what I wanted, what scene, and that's what it was perfect. So,
it's awesome. It's such an awesome cover.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to her. Yeah.
So a lot of your main characters seem to be, female.
Yes.
How are you able to write the female character so well?
I got asked this, and I don't know, man. You treat them like humans, of course, and Wally, Waleska, and Risa from the Fearless are actually my wife split in 2.
Okay.
Risa is the intellect and the intellect and the logistical part of her, and then Wally is the the part that wants to eat Cheetos and has great legs and doesn't care what people think, so I sort of braided these qualities together and then deconstructed them to write. They're real women. They just happen to be components of someone I know. And that kind of got things kicking for me. And, from there, it seemed to get easier. I guess I ended up writing, 5 of my 7 main characters are female. And I haven't had anyone accuse me of being a misogynist except for one person that, wrote a screed about me. And that was cool because, you know what? Not everything is for everybody. Right. So I think I'll take those. I like the way that the response has been, and I'll take it and cherish that.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, here at 30-Minute Author Interviews, we like to end each interview with a segment that we call the legendary ending. So some of these are book related, some of them aren't really book related, but so I'm actually going to start it off with a fan question. It's from Nick Breaker, and he says, does his brain ever turn off? He is a machine.
Nick, 3 words: death wish coffee.
And waffles.
And waffles, powered by carbs. As the Lord intended, believe me, carbs. So
what songs are currently on your writing playlist?
I don't have a writing playlist.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Do you listen to music while you write?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nope. And I love music. I'm the grandson of a professional musician.
Oh, really?
But I don't my grandpa was a big band leader in the 30s.
Oh, cool.
But I don't listen. I love music so much. I feel like I'm cheating on music if I'm writing while I'm listening to the new Blondie album, which I just bought and I'm almost giddy over. And so I actually kind of just we have a lot of pets, and I have an 8-year-old son, and that's the soundtrack.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were stuck in a zombie apocalypse, which one of your book characters would you want to be stuck with, and why?
Okay, this is actually really easy. It's French Heavener. He's the main male character from Banshee because he's the kind of guy that can use a teacup as a weapon.
Okay.
He's just a naturally gifted, aggressive individual. And I would be comfortable going into, like, say, Walmart Black Friday with him at my back.
You might need him at Walmart Black Friday.
Well, I don't know. I know I will. And zombies we can handle, but a $3 waffle iron where people are beating each other to death, I'm going to need some backup.
That's right. Now, if you were stuck in a zombie apocalypse, but you could choose any character from any kind of media source, movies, comics, video games, whatever, what character would you want and why?
Okay, can I take Iron Man and can I take his suit?
Sure, why not?
Then, sorry, Robert, you're out. You're on your own, brother. So
you just want the suit.
I just want the suit, man. I loved you in Johnny Dangerous, let's Johnny Be Good in '87, and loved all your '80s films. And you're a talented individual, and Godspeed, sir. But I'll be on my way in your suit.
That's right. There we go. If you had a time machine, where would you travel and why?
Okay, I'm going to refer to what I say to my students. The good old days weren't.
Okay.
I love things like dentistry and hand washing and stuff like that. So it would, as fascinated as I am by the 1300s and the late Cretaceous and times like that, I actually wouldn't mind being present in the early, say, turn of the century in Paris and Germany, specifically where we call it the golden era of Europe.
Okay.
I'd be kind of interested to see that. I've so much of the art that I've consumed, and also who doesn't want to, it would be an opportunity for me to wear something other than sweatpants and a coffee stained shirt while I'm typing. There was such a dapper air to the writers back then, despite their addictions and psychological shortcomings and stuff like that. I'd still like to be a part of it.
That works. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Mind reading, and I know that is, but it would, think about the problems it would eliminate. I don't think about the solutions it would create. I think about the actual problems it would eliminate before they even began.
Okay.
And then I would, of course, figure out a way to parlay that into. I'm not saying I would like to profit from it, but I'm not saying it either. So
there we go. And then the question we're famous for here is: a penguin walks through the door right now wearing a sombrero. What does he say, and why is he here?
Okay, first of all, disregard the sombrero because it's all part of his ruse.
Okay.
Secondly, the penguin says nothing because everybody knows that the best spies can keep their mouth shut.
There we go. And then before we leave, do you have any advice, whether it be for writing or for life, that you would like to share with the listeners?
Go ahead and eat the pie. Go ahead and eat the waffle. I don't think that life should be about denial. Without getting too esoteric, we tend to, in the United States, we are very passionate people, but we associate pleasure with guilt. And I think it's okay to live a little.
And where can the listeners go if they would like to learn about you or your stories?
Amazon.com. I'll be going now this year. We've made a decision. We're going wide. We'll be at Barnes & Noble and iBooks and everywhere else. And that's simply because my audiobooks are almost as popular as my written books. Okay. So, we'll be going wide. But for right now, Amazon.com, or you can go to TerryMaggert.com and purchase them directly right there.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and mention it because I'm looking forward to it. Anybody that is going to be near Roanoke, Virginia on April 8th, you will be one of the participants at the Roanoke Author Invasion.
Can't wait. And Liz Long is amazing. Can't recommend anything she is involved with enough. So it's going to be fantastic.
I will be there.
Great. I can't wait to meet you.
Yeah, I'm going to be volunteering, I think, for like an hour.
Okay.
Wherever they tell me to go, and then I'm going to go walk around, and I'm definitely stopping by your booth, and there's a couple other authors I want to stop by. So yeah, this will be my my second. I've been to one kind of author invasion at a local library in Knoxville.
Okay.
The Maynard.
I'm going to be there this year.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I might have to try to go to that one. I just went to that one this year.
Great people. Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah. I went there. So this will be my second one. Roanoke Author Invasion, April 8th. Come meet Terry. There's going to be a bunch of other authors there.
Oh,
and
good stuff.
I'll be walking around as well. So you might be, I'm sure you'll find me. I'll have my blog t-shirt on. So.
Oh, cool.
Well, thanks for taking time out of your day and coming on 30-minute author interviews. We appreciate it.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, everybody, that's all the time we've got for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to 30-Minute Author Interviews. We hope you come back and join us next Wednesday and every Wednesday for a brand new episode. And head on over to Leigendarium.com and check out the show notes for this episode. There you'll find the links to the two sponsors that we have, Cereal Box and Galactic Satori Chronicles by Nick Breaker and Paul Hicks. These are both things that I enjoy, and I believe that you will enjoy them as well. So head on over to the show notes, check them out, and let them know that you heard about them through the Leigendarium and 30-Minute Author Interviews. I would also like to thank two of our Patreon supporters. I would like to thank Third Scribe and Maggie Stewart Grant. They're supporting 30-Minute Author Interviews on Patreon. You can support 30-Minute Author Interviews for as little as $1 a month. And at $5 a month, you get the bonus podcast called 10 Questions With that comes out every week on Tuesday. We also have a Patreon-only t-shirt and one-of-a-kind sketch from Ben Adams as well. So head on over to patreon.com/Leigendarium and check out the different rewards. And until next time, guys, have a good one, and remember to always stay legendary. Last week, they just... dang it!